Hello, I'm Raul Ochoa, and I am a dual language social science and Spanish teacher at Clifton. Um, and this class that I will be talking about is the dual language history class for sixth graders, which is our ancient civilizations course, right? Um, so first, a class overview. Um, in essence, we'll be taking a look at early human history. We'll be starting, uh, really, we'll quickly start with a long, long time ago, first humans, and then we'll quickly transition to about 10 to 12,000 years ago with the first like ancient civilizations in Mesopotamia and in that region of the world, Africa, Northern Africa. Um, and so the idea is to take a look at these major Western and non-Western ancient civilizations, when and where they developed, why they became dominant, and why they declined, right? So, which is a pattern that we see throughout this time period. And then, of course, toward the end, right, there are some increasing encounters among these people. And mostly, of course, it's driven through through economic reasons, rise in trade. So anyways, with the rise in trade, there's an increasing encounter among peoples from different parts of the region. So we'll take a look at that as well. That's kind of like a broad overview of our course and what we'll be looking at. In terms of activities that we will be doing, that we will be working on throughout the school year, more than anything, as I've mentioned in my class syllabus, I'd like for the class to be inquiry driven. I'd like for students to ask questions, lots of questions actually, because that's what historians do, right? So in essence, I want students to be historians, to do the work of the discipline, the work of history, right? And so historians ask questions, they ask questions, they ask questions, and more and more and more. And the idea is to then investigate those questions and then to reach some sort of interpretation based on their investigation, right? So that's my goal for students. So we'll be reading, evaluating, interpreting primary and secondary sources. And of course, students will be offering their own interpretations. And based on that, they'll be writing and orally defending evidence-based conclusions, right? Of course, like in any like in any classroom, right? There's teacher-guided instruction where I kind of lead things, and I support kids and I introduce topics and I model certain activities of how to complete, and then, but in all honesty, students will be spending most of their time in parent small group settings, right? And research shows that students learn best from other students, right? Of course, a teacher is essential in this, right? As the teacher guides the whole process, and the teacher oversees it and offers the supports, you know, to make sure that the students are successful in their collaborative settings. And certainly I'll be doing all of that. But of course, right, students will be working most of the time in parent small group settings. And in our virtual setting in which we operate now, this will be done through our breakout rooms, right? Where we have the capability of grouping students into pairs, triads, groups of 4, groups of 5, in these breakout rooms. And then the teacher has the capability of visiting each one of these rooms, right? So we'll definitely continue working in these group settings in our virtual environment. And of course, as well, students will have plenty of opportunities to independently practice the skills that they've learned, right, in class, and also to apply the knowledge that they've learned, right? And this will be done through independent activities, independent classwork and homework assignments. And some of them will be done when we're together, and some of them will be done when they are at home and they're working individually, right? So these are the type of activities that we will be working on and throughout the school year. Students' grades are composed of 5 different categories. The first category is DBQs. These are in essence document-based questions. Students are provided a set of primary sources, mostly primary sources from a variety of topics throughout the school year. Students read the primary sources, analyze them, interpret them, and then at the end of their process, this this DBQ process, students write a type of essay or an essay, an argumentative essay, where they take a stance and then they defend their argument with evidence, and the evidence coming from primary sources. Certainly, we'll be working on a whole host of projects throughout the school year. These are 25% of our grade. We will taking some tests. We'll be taking some tests, some quizzes, some lessons, quizzes on lessons, and on tests on chapters. Participation is a huge component, right? It's very important. 15% of our grade, and of course, classwork and homework is a quarter percentage of our grade, right? 25%. Now, I do have some points that I'd like to discuss with regards to student late and makeup work. Of course, it's the student's responsibility to find out what the student missed if the student was absent, right? Truth of the matter is it's difficult to keep track of students at times when they are out and then they come back, and right, so it's just far easier on everyone involved if the student takes charge in finding out what he or she missed when out, right? Of course, for excused absences, makeup work will be accepted without any type of penalty. However, if a student is present all of the time and a student is not completing assignments on time, there is a 10% less for each day that it is late. I think this is quite fair. I know I've seen where some teachers just don't take any late work, right? So I'm not that teacher. I do take late work, but it will receive 10% less for each day that it is late. I think this is fair for everyone involved. And also, please note that if the assignment is more than 5 days late, from this is 5 days from the day that it was originally assigned, then the assignment will no longer be taken, right? Because then it just becomes a big headache for me trying to track down assignments from the week and a half, 2 weeks before, and then going back into the grade book. And by that time, it's kind of like we've moved on, right? And of course, this is for just this does not apply for excused absences. It is the student's responsibility to reschedule missed quizzes, tests, and presentations, right, which is very important. Classroom expectations. In my class and at Clifton, we always reach for excellence, and we will continue to practice Clifton's core beliefs. And these are respect, empathy, accountability, compassion, and hope, right? And this is something that 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks into our school year, we've been practicing and been very conscious of in class, right? In our dual language class, communication among students and between students and teacher will always be in Spanish. Our textbook is in Spanish, right? Most of students, this is a textbook that students should have. They should have picked this up. And of course, they also have an inquiry a notebook that will also come in handy as well. Both textbook and workbook are in Spanish. Communication among students while they work in groups and pairs will be in Spanish. And communication between the students and I will be in Spanish as well. Of course, some exceptions here and there, few exceptions are made throughout the school year, but I always make that very clear at the start of the class and offer a detailed explanation of the exceptions. Here and there, we will watch some informative, enlightening videos online, and these videos, from my experience, are in English, but I always do my best to have the subtitles in Spanish, right? So, and that's with regards to the language, right? So we're always working in the targeted language. Students are expected to be prepared with classroom materials. You may find a list of these classroom materials in our syllabus, these suggested materials in our syllabus. And of course, students are expected to participate in our learning activities. We're always polite, we're always respectful toward each other. And I suspect that that's the way it'll continue to be. And of course, students are expected to complete assignments on a timely basis, to do their best effort, and to make sure that it's their own original work. Some virtual classroom expectations. So these apply to our virtual classroom setting right now. Of course, all of the above mentioned class expectations also apply to our virtual classroom. If I may, I would like to say that it is my sincere preference for all students to have their cameras on during class, especially during pair and small group activities. In all honesty, up until now, a majority of my 6th grade dual language ancient civilization students, this class, majority of the students have had their cameras on a pretty consistent basis, but there has been a good percentage of students that don't necessarily have their cameras on. What I can say, and I will say, is that it is my sincere preference for students to have their cameras on, right? It's nice to see them, and as I often tell them, it's always nice to see their beautiful smiles as well, right? So I would like to emphasize that I'd like for students to minimize their distractions. And I include this point here because I've seen all of these on a regular basis in my classes. So not necessarily specific to this class, but I have definitely seen students interacting with some type of video game, interacting with pets, on their phones, And these are things that, of course, I bring to mind immediately. But if I can have some help at home with driving this point home, that the idea is to focus on our class and for while we're in class, and then they can have their time afterwards to to engage with their video games and pets and phones and other things that they'd like to do, right? Another important point that I'd like to drive home is that students use the chat function on Zoom, which is a very important tool that we have at our disposal. Students can communicate with each other during class. Students can communicate with me during class. And that especially becomes important when some students have, so when we're having a faulty connection, right? And at times, for the most of the time, it's momentarily, it's a minute here, a minute there, the wonders of technology, right? It's not perfect. So the chat function on Zoom becomes very important because students can communicate because the video froze for half a minute, or the audio went out for half a minute or 15 seconds, right? So they communicate with each other, they communicate with me via the chat function, or even this on the stream on Google Classroom, right? But there have been instances in this class and in my other classes where students are not necessarily using the chat and the stream for the purposes of class, right? So if we can make sure that students understand that and adhere to that, that would be awesome. Same thing with the mute function. It's important, and for the most part, students have been very good about this. If the students, we have 30, let's just say we have 30 students in a class, and all 30 students do not have their mute themselves on mute at any given time, right? That means that we're receiving audio from 31 different computers at the same time, right? So it becomes very, very difficult to hear and to understand what anyone is saying. So as I've said, and we've been working on this, unmute yourself if you're contributing to the class discussion, to the group discussion, to working with your partner, you'd like to volunteer to read, et cetera, et cetera. But at all other times, if the student can have their device on mute, that will be perfect. Another one that's super important is please talk with your student that of the importance of not taking any screenshots, photos and or video of classmates and or the teacher. Of course, this speaks to the issue of privacy of everyone involved and a whole host of other issues that I'm sure we're all familiar with, right? So here's the list of consequences, consequence ladder here. My first step is always to give students a verbal, a warning, a verbal warning, and or in writing. And I usually take that as an opportunity to discuss with the student, our classroom expectations, and to kind of like highlight what it is that went wrong at the time. And for the most part, in my experience, students are, they're definitely smart enough to know what it is that went wrong at that moment, and they acknowledge it, and we just kind of move forward from there. And then, things just kind of go from there. If I need to call the attention to the student a second or a third time, then I usually ask student to write some sort of reflection, right? So once they start reflecting on it, they think about it, they're putting it on paper, they process it better. So that's usually my second step. I also I won't hesitate to contact parent guardian either by email or phone, right? And usually this is a very good tool. This is an awesome tool that I use, right? Because parents are always awesome, and parents and guardians are always awesome, and they never shy away from having a nice little chat with their student, with their child. And then usually this goes a long way, right? This goes a long way. And of course, you know, it takes a team, right? It takes a team to make things work. Um, uh, Next step is, you know, I document and report the behavior of the incident to the school's counselor or administration. In all honesty, um, I've had to do this less less than a handful of times in my time in the profession. So it's not something that I've had to do very often. Um, and certainly, you know, if things really just continue to escalate, then I will ask if I can arrange a meeting with parents or guardians so we can sit down and discuss what it is that's going on in the classroom, right? So, um, and that is all, my friends. That is it. Um, and we're a team, right? We're a team. I do my part in the classroom. I love my job. I support the kids every which way I can. Um, and I always encourage students to reach out via email, via the stream, um, right, to contact me if they need some support. And of course, that also, I extend that to you all as well. And please, at any point, do not hesitate to contact me. Um, and the best way is through email, and I do my best to return messages as soon as I can, right? So please don't hesitate. I look forward to getting to know you all some more and meeting you all, and I look forward to a working and a productive relationship throughout the school year. And we'll be in touch. Okay, we'll definitely be in touch. So take care, and hope to talk to you soon. All right.